Welcome to the BAPS Better Living Podcast. This is the Dharmic Life series, where we talk about everyday moments and find a deeper spiritual dimension to them, so that we can find greater joy, happiness, and peace in our lives. My name is Palak, and today I'm joined by my co-host, Akshara. Akshara, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
No, it's a pleasure. I actually wanted to start out by telling you a story. You know my 12-year-old son. So the other day I was passing by his room, and would you believe I heard him listening to an English katha, like a sermon, which is out of character for him. And then for the following few days, he was doing the same thing. I was pleasantly surprised. But it did get me thinking about a conversation that you and I had a little while ago, where you were talking about how different elements in our environment influence us. And you were talking about, or you mentioned the power of what we consume, but we never got to finish that conversation.
Yes. Nowadays, we are so conscious about what we consume. We make sure that we read the labels, make sure that we have good protein intake, a good balanced diet, and all that. And it is great because we know when we have like sugary drinks and load up ourselves with all that junk, we just feel bloated and restless. Whereas when we have a good balanced diet with veggies, grains, fruits, we just feel more active, more focused, less chances of those midday meltdowns, especially for my little one when he's back from school.
I know 100% what you're talking about. So I have 2 teenage boys, and man, are they constantly hungry, right? And the quick thing is to reach for that junky snack, but then it's constant snacking. So whenever they have some more wholesome, balanced food, kind of like you mentioned, that's when they're satisfied longer and they last until dinner.
I can relate to that. Between the school activities and the homework, our kitchen is always open. But this pattern doesn't just stop at food. We don't just consume through our mouth. We consume through our eyes, our mind, our ears. Every podcast we listen to, every notification that we check, every reel that we swipe on social media, every conversation that our kids overhear, it all leaves an imprint. When the atmosphere at our home is calm and quiet, the kids mirror that peace. We can see them more quiet, more calm.
You know what? I think you're 100% right. But you know what you're talking about, how every podcast we hear, every notification. So it's like we have an input of information from the first second we wake up, right? And it's going on all day. So I guess my question to you is, what do you do first thing in the morning?
Honestly, it's my phone. I turn off my alarm, and before I know it, I am checking email, checking messages, catching up on news. And sometimes, Palak, that one stressful message kind of changes the tone of the entire day to negative, even before it's breakfast time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But you know what? Honestly, I don't think it's anything to be embarrassed about, because I used to do the same thing for a long time. It was almost causing me to be anxious. It was information overload from the first second of the day. I felt like I was jumping right into it. But there's a practice I started, I would say fairly recently, where, yes, I would pick up my phone first thing in the morning, but instead of checking the notifications and scrolling through, I actually started listening to katha. While I was getting ready, got out of bed, and throughout my whole morning routine. I mean, Akshara, I can only hope that's where my son got it from. But what I can say for sure is I feel like it had me calmer in the morning, have a positive mindset, and it's just like the right start to the day, that everything is intentional, and I'm just kind of getting off to the right foot.
I can relate to that. So we listen to kirtans in the morning, and the kids don't get ready any faster.
Of course not.
But the mornings seem more lighter, more grounded. It's just a good positive start to the day. I recently came across a study which said that you hold on to negative thoughts more than the positive one. And that makes it even more important to consciously and consistently put your mind and home with uplifting input.
What you're saying right now with the negative thoughts and all of the inputs that we have, it actually makes me think of, we are always using technology, right? And there's so many good uses to it. Like personally, I love how easy it is to just get on and use maybe ChatGPT for my upcoming vacation planning to Greece, or Instagram and TikTok. They help me out with, teenager slang these days because I don't even know what they're saying. So it's all good, right? And it helps me keep up with my kids. But, sometimes it's a surplus of information, and that information overload, it becomes too much. And when you have so much information, it's easy to get caught up in not only the positives of it, but go down to the negative, right? Like everything that's good also has an opposite side. There's always good with the bad. And, it's true and accurate information that we need to try to seek out, right? When we're using things like media, digital media, the internet. But that's the part we have to be cautious about, right? When I'm on, let's say, Instagram or something, I'm looking at a video of something that I'm actually looking for, but the next one is queued up and ready. And then before I know it, it's half an hour has passed. And now I'm doing something that I wasn't even planning on, right? And so that's the rabbit hole we tend to go down. And that's what we have to be really cautious about. Because truth be told, it's not just social media, but anything nowadays in the media world can become kind of addicting.
That is so correct. Mohan Swami Maharaj often emphasizes that technology in itself, it's neutral, and it becomes beneficial when used towards peace and welfare. It's like fire. You can cook your meal or burn your house. It depends on how you use it. So even in Vachanamrut Gadra section 118, Bhagavan Swaminarayan explains how the senses are constantly pulling us outwards. So vigilance is the key. Today, everything is literally at our fingertips, and that makes awareness even more essential for us and the kids who are growing up in this digital world.
Absolutely. I totally hear what you're saying, right? So it's whatever is on our minds, right? What you're saying about our minds and the consumption, but looking at that perspective, it's not just our minds, right? We're also shaped by the voices around us. And, the media that we consume, all of it leads to who we become. So those voices are also found in the company that we keep, right? But that company, I guess, we always think of it as a human, right? A friend, a coworker, a family member. But that company can really be anyone or anything that has access to us, right? Anything that we hear, anyone that we hear it from, that essentially it influences our everyday life.
That is so correct. And I'm sure you've heard about this saying that we are an average of the 5 people who we spend the most time with. And this is such an important quote. Like, it makes you stop and think about who you surround yourself with, whether they elevate you or drain your energy.
So you're going to have to give me a minute to think about that. When I think about who elevates or drains my energy, it actually reminds me of my former job. So in my former job, the people that I was with 8 hours a day, they were pretty negative. I would say they drained me, right? It was constant complaints. No matter what happened in the day, there was like nothing positive. And to be quite honest, I actually brought that home with me, right? Because we're at work 8 hours a day, you bring it home with you. And then the way it plays out in our home is we might be taking out whatever, like that pent up frustration or negativity from the day out on our kids or our spouse. I mean, that mood just carries, right? But then when I think about my life right now and who I'm surrounded by on a daily basis, I would say it's definitely the complete opposite. Those around me now, they challenge me. They give me a positive mindset. And I like to think that they actually make me a better person.
That's exactly what the scientists call the social contagion. The idea that the behaviors and the emotions spread like the ripple. It's not just the physical germs that spread, it's also our energy. The easiest example I can give is the yawn. If you were to yawn right now, I would want to yawn too. It's contagious. Just like the ripple, the ideas and the moods of others quietly shape of how we think and act.
So this social contagion theory that you're talking about, I think, if I have it right, it makes me think of, the Hindu epic, the Rāmāyaṇ, right? And in the Rāmāyaṇ, there's that well-known story about Mantra and Kaikai. And it's probably like a shining example of how, one small negative thought can plant a seed that just kind of grows and brews into negativity. So in that story of the Rāmāyaṇ, what happened was that, Lord Ram, he was set to be coronated as king. And originally, Kaikai was very happy with that because, she had as much love for him as she did her own son, Bharat. But then over time, Mantra would start kind of talking to her negative thoughts about, she gave this idea that, oh, well, if Lord Ram gets crowned king, well, your son Bharat is going to be set aside and you're no longer going to be the queen mother, right? And at first, Kaikai did resist these thoughts and what she was saying, but it was constant and she was always repeating it. So eventually, this seed that Mantra planted, it actually consumed Kaikai's own thoughts. And that's almost like, what caused Lord Ram's exile. So, it's almost like a shining example of how like the smallest seed of negativity, if it's repeated and we give an ear to it, we lend an ear to it, that, it almost creates negative things, jealousy, right? Anger, and it does impact what our decisions end up being.
Exactly. And it goes both ways. Just like Mantra's negativity spread, Jambuwan's faith and encouragement brought out the best in Hanuman. When the Vanars, stood helplessly on the shore, unable to understand how they would cross the wide ocean, Jambuwan reminded Hanuman of his own strength and devotion, awakening his confidence to do what everyone thought was impossible. Hanumanji leapt the ocean and reached Sitaji. That moment often reminds me of how powerful the right company can be. A single encouraging word can shift one's own mindset. That's the power of positive company.
Yeah, what you said in the very beginning and this whole idea of social contagion, it makes a lot of sense to me. And it's definitely something that I'm going to remember, right? The voices that are around us and the people that they're around us, they play a very significant role in who we become, right? And it's up to us to decide what kind of company we're going to keep and if that company is going to let us be a better person or not, right? I mean, I think we all strive to be a better mother or wife or daughter or friend. And so that's something that we're going to have to decide for ourselves.
We've talked about external influences, social media, people, but the most important influence lies within us, our thoughts. They say that we have around 60,000 thoughts a day, most of them recurring. On the most basic level, I think it's safe to say that we become what we think. Just as we talked about the food that fuels our body, our thoughts fuel our action and identity.
But, to be quite honest, you're right. And so that's why, introspection, reflection, that's definitely a big part of like our normal spiritual practices. But if I'm being completely honest, I don't always take the time to pause and reflect, right? And it could be for like any number of reasons. It could just be because I'm prioritizing other things. I just kind of don't have time for it. But I do think sometimes it's because of my own internal narrative, and that's what's getting in the way of me taking the time to like think about my day, think about, how everything went, the things that I've said and my mindset for the day. Those internal narratives sometimes can be an obstacle.
Oh, wait. What do you mean? I've never really thought about internal narratives.
Oh, okay. So internal narratives. The things that we think that form our view of not only ourselves, but maybe of others, and also the world around us, right? So they could be any sort of thoughts that we have that either create like positive thoughts in ourselves or negative. So I guess an example could be, let's say you have a job interview, right? So normally, like naturally, everybody's a little bit nervous, right? But in preparation of that job interview, either your nerves get the best of you and you're like, oh my God, I don't know enough information about the company. What if they ask me this? I'm not going to know the answer. Or you can sort of give yourself a pep talk, right? So like the flip side of that is saying, don't worry, you got this. you're prepared, you've done all your homework, you're going to be great. So those are internal narratives, right? They can be positive or they can be negative. And sometimes the problem is it's the negative internal narratives that consume our thoughts, and that's what we carry into the day with us.
Oh, and you're right. Those definitely need an unsubscription. What's really helped me is introspection through journaling. It's nothing lengthy or formal, but it's just pausing at the end of the day and writing things I'm grateful for and not the things which did not go my way. So it would be something as easy as I'm grateful for my kids' health rather than getting the entire day derailed because I had a pulled muscle or something. In fact, Mahan Swami Maharaj urges us to do daily Prapti no Vichar, which is just to reflect upon the blessing of satsang, the spiritual blessings that we have, the rare gift of Satpurush and satsang that we've attained. So focusing more on what we don't have, that needs to stop, and just remembering what we have makes me feel more grounded and just makes me feel more positive, and my mindset shifts to a more positive mindset.
I like that. Thinking more about Mahant Swami, thinking of our Guru and the things that we have, right? Because too often we're thinking about what we don't. It makes me just think back to, our daily ritual, how we do our puja, right? Our daily prayer every morning. And part of that is reading the Satsang Dīkshā, right? So the Satsang Dīkshā was a scripture that was written by Mahant Swami just a couple of years ago. And in it, he provides a contemporary way for us to practically live our lives while engaging in our spiritual practices, our religious practices. And what I really like about that is that a lot of what he says in the Satsang Dīkshā actually kind of aligns with what we're talking about right now. In particular, though, there's this one section where he talks about ahimsa, nonviolence, right? And I mean, nonviolence, we always think of it as a physical thing, right? I mean, it is the reason we're vegetarian after all. But he actually shares the idea of nonviolence in thought and speech. So much so that he has written, it's nearly, I think, a dozen verses that talk about ahimsa in thought and speech. And, these always stick out to me because I think it's the subconscious thing that we don't always do that we need to. And some of the verses that he has written, what it says is, one should never speak in a harsh, hurtful, or damaging way. Another verse shares a little excerpt that, that which we speak or say should always be beneficial. And I always remember these, especially because, if that which he says, if it has to do with how we think about others and how we speak to other people, and if that's supposed to be so powerful and so impactful on someone else, the same applies to us, right? I mean, if what we say and think to others is such a strong force, it's an equally strong force that we need to keep in mind for ourselves on what we listen to for ourselves, what we think about ourselves. They really shape kind of who we become just as much as all the other stuff, right?
That's such a beautiful note to end today's session. So as we wrap today, I'd like to pause and reflect for a moment. The way we live our lives is shaped in so many subtle ways, but three things really stand out: what we take in, who we spend time with, and the thoughts we carry with us. So, feed your mind with these good ideas, surround yourself with those amazing people, and watch your quiet thoughts turn into powerful habits.
Well, I guess the message is simple, but a powerful one. Choose carefully. Surround yourself with nourishment that uplifts you, people who inspire you, and thoughts that align with your highest values. Because when these three forces come together, they don't just change our day, they shape our entire life. So until next time, let's all take a moment to be mindful of what we let in, who we walk with, and the stories we tell ourselves within.